Hey, thanks for checking back into our Traxxas TRX-4 Sport Build project, and today we're going to install the servo, the BEC, and the steering arm into our project build truck over here. Now, if you haven't been following our series, I will have a link to the playlist at the end of the video so you can get up to speed on what we're doing here. Alright, this should be a pretty easy install. You know, Traxxas stuff is pretty much bolt in. That's really what makes some of their products so much fun, because you could go and just get an aftermarket part and drop it right in, and you don't have to worry about any custom modifications or anything like that. Alright, so we are going to install the 400 high torque servo here. This is a high voltage servo, so we're also going to go ahead and install this BEC. This is a pretty nice servo. It has metal gears, it's got this aluminum center section to it, and it operates on 6 volts or 7.4 volts, and that's why we have the BEC here, to give it the power that it needs to operate. And since we're obviously upgrading stuff, we're going to also install the metal servo arm. The servo arm that comes on the kit is plastic, so a metal one should take a lot more abuse. Alright, let me get set up and we'll get into this install. Alright, I've got my setup going on here. I've got my Traxxas tools ready to go, and I am going to use an electric driver just to make my life a little bit easier. Now, as you can see, you know, we're pretty far along in this project already, and this truck is kind of taken apart. But if you're just going to go and swap out the servo, you do need to gain access to the steering link below and unscrew the screw that goes into the servo arm, and then you're going to go ahead and unscrew the 4 screws that hold the servo into the top of the chassis, and then you're going to move on to removing the receiver box cover so you get this signal lead out of the receiver. Now that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go ahead and just pull this servo out, and we'll start swapping out for the new one. I've got my 4 screws out that secured the servo. I've got my receiver box cover off and the wire cover off, and I've already removed the signal wire from channel 1, and I've taken it out of the box here, and I'm just going to kind of slide everything through the chassis. And there we go, and just kind of pop the wires out from the little guides that they're in, which is pretty cool that they have them there. And there we go, the servo is out. Now, for those of you that are new, that are checking this out, that are like, why do I need a high torque servo? Well, the servo that's in here is a good, you know, starter servo, basically. It gets you going, but there's probably going to come a time where you want more steering. You want more steering power out of the vehicle, and that's when you're going to want to go and upgrade to a higher torque servo. And that will just give you more power as you're navigating through rocks or making tight corners. And once you really start getting the hang of driving, that's when you're going to want that extra performance. All right, so I've got that out, and I'm going to go grab my new servo and just undo the wires here and just basically put everything back in the way I found it. Now, before you go ahead and button everything up as far as the receiver box goes, you're going to want to go and plug everything in and turn on your radio system, turn on your truck, and make sure that the steering servo is centered. Make sure you got your dial trim on the radio set to center, and that way when you go put everything back together, you get your servo arm on, you know that everything is going to be centered. The servo arm isn't going to be off, and you're going to have to go reset everything later. All right, let me go get this stuff back in. I'll show you how this servo looks installed. I've got the new 400 servo in there, and now it's time to move on to the servo arm. Now I'm just going to flip the truck over, and I've already taken the screw out of the old servo, the machine screw that's basically going to secure the servo arm onto the new servo. And I've got to go ahead and place the servo arm directly on so it's straight ahead. It's perpendicular to the servo. Again, I have already gone ahead and straightened everything out so I know that it's centered. I'm just going to go put that machine screw in to secure it, and then they do go ahead and give you a new screw for the servo arm for where the steering link goes in. It does have some Loctite on it, but I do have the screws from our stainless steel screw kit that I'm going to put in. When we get to the point of putting the servo link back in, that's when I'll go and tighten everything down there. My servo arm is in, and now it's time to move on to the Traxxas high output BEC. Now this is going to go ahead and supply the power that the servo needs in order to operate at maximum potential. So this is actually a plug-in and play system for a lot of the Traxxas vehicles, and if you do have a system that isn't plug-in and play, they do go ahead and give you a little pigtail that you could go and solder onto your speed controller leads, and even some shrink wrap to go ahead and secure that. We're not going to need that, and there are some zip ties so you go neaten up the wiring, and of course some two-sided tape to go ahead and stick this thing down. And actually, I should say there's instructions, so it will walk you through how to go ahead and solder that up if you need to. But like I said, we're going to go ahead and just drop this in basically because it's a nice plug-in and play system. So what we're going to do here is this is going to sit inside of the receiver box. I'm going to go ahead and unplug channel 2, which is the speed controller, this signal lead right here. And this gets plugged in right in the top of the BEC. And once you go ahead and plug that in, there's a little tab on the side. Of course, I gotta flip this over. There we go. And it should slide in one direction. And so this will get mounted in here. And this new lead will go and get plugged into the channel 2 port. That's your throttle port. Number 1 is your steering port. Number 2 is your throttle port. I always like to tell people steering is your number 1 priority, so it always goes into the number 1 receiver port. All right, so now I'm gonna go ahead and route this power wire out through the receiver box and over to this pigtail that's on our XL5 speed controller, and this is going to power the BEC. So I'm gonna go ahead, wire that up, and show you what it looks like when it's all together. There we have it. My BEC is squeezed into the receiver box here, and I've routed the wire over to the ESC to power it. Now, it is a very tight squeeze in here. If you stand the BEC up, it will fit. If you position it just right and then bundle up the wires and use the zip ties to secure everything in there, but it does fit. Now, if you're finding some difficulties fitting it in there, they do have an optional receiver box cover that's a bit higher and offers a lot more clearance in there. All right, that wraps it up for this part of our build series. And again, I'm pretty excited the way this thing is turning out. It's going to be a lot of fun. So if you don't want to miss anything, please hit that subscribe button and the notifications bell. We'll see you back here soon for some more progress on our build.